The mahogany desk gleamed under a low lamp. 3 figures sat in the lawyer's office, but Tyler Ellison had been smirking since he walked in. Raymond Cross adjusted his glasses and began reading from a leather portfolio.
The house, the cars, and $1 million. All to my son, Tyler.
Tyler's smirk stretched into something sharper as each asset was named. He threw his head back and laughed, a loud, joyless bark that filled the room.
Just like she promised.
Thomas Ashford didn't move. Across the desk, his hands remained folded, and his face held only a patient smile. Raymond cleared his throat and reached for a second, heavier folder.
There is also the matter of the Geneva box.
Tyler's smile vanished. Across the desk, Thomas's gray-blue eyes held a quiet, knowing light that refused to waver. But to understand the silence in Thomas Ashford's eyes, you have to go back 8 years to his wedding day. Linda had been a widow for years, and when she danced with Thomas, her laugh was the first real one in a long time. But her son Tyler stood apart at the reception, arms crossed, watching the new husband with a resentment he never bothered to hide. Over the years, Linda tried to build bridges, peaceful afternoons in her garden, coffee on the porch, but Tyler only saw a stranger in his father's place. At dinner one night, Tyler raised a glass with a thin smile and said, "To the man who's sitting in my father's chair." Last spring, Linda's health failed fast. Thomas barely left her side, but Tyler found reasons to stay late at the office. At the funeral, Thomas held a white rose and stared at the casket, while Tyler checked his phone 3 times during the eulogy. The will reading was scheduled 8 weeks later. When Tyler got the letter, he smirked and said, "Finally." And so in that wood-paneled office, when Tyler laughed out loud, Thomas kept his hands folded and his face unreadable, because Thomas already knew what Raymond Cross was about to say next. Raymond's hand hovered over the second folder, as if weighing a decision.
Well, what's the matter with it?
The lawyer glanced at Thomas, who gave a near imperceptible nod.
Your mother maintained a separate financial instrument, a safety deposit box in Geneva. That is not governed by the will you just heard read.
A safety deposit box. With what inside?
That, Mr. Ellison, is a matter of a trust established in Liechtenstein. The details are extensive, and I am not at liberty to disclose them without proper process.
Tyler's jaw tightened. He turned toward Thomas, whose composure was absolute.
Did you know about this?
I knew Linda.
The air grew thick. Tyler's knuckles went white on the armrest, and for the first time, something like fear crept into his expression. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the soft ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner.
I am under strict instructions. The trust documents are confidential until released by the co-signatory.
Confidential from me. I am her son.
And I am her husband. Let the man finish, Tyler.
Tyler's mouth opened, then snapped shut. He looked like a man whose script had just been torn in half.
The trust is a Liechtenstein instrument. It requires a physical co-signature, renewed annually, without which the box cannot be opened.
Renewed by who?
Thomas simply folded his hands on the desk. The gold wedding band caught the lamp's amber light.
The identity of the co-signatory is itself part of the trust's terms. I am not authorized to reveal it at this time.
But Tyler's gaze had already slid, slowly, inexorably, to the man beside him. With a dry rasp, Raymond pushed a leather folder across the mahogany. Embossed in gold, Liechtenstein Trust.
The trust named a single co-signatory, Thomas Ashford. Without his annual signature, the box remains sealed.
You hold the key to my inheritance?
Thomas remained motionless, his expression unreadably still.
The box contains $14 million in bearer bonds. Your mother's family legacy, untouched for decades.
Show me. I want to see it in writing.
Raymond broke the wax seal and opened the folder, laying the trust instrument flat. Tyler's face drained of color as he scanned the terms. Every detail was iron. The bonds had been passed down from Linda's grandfather, old money, held outside any will. Across the desk, Thomas simply watched. He hadn't spoken, and that silence was the most terrifying thing in the room.
You've been sitting there this whole time knowing you held all the cards.
Thomas didn't flinch. His gray-blue eyes stayed on Tyler like a calm before a storm.
She would never have done this without you whispering in her ear. You poisoned her against me.
Your mother made her own decisions, Tyler, always.
Tyler's face reddened, a vein pulsing at his temple. He was losing control, and he knew it.
I must state for the record, Mrs. Ashford established the trust 6 years ago, at her own initiative, and with full mental capacity.
So what now? I am supposed to beg. Is that what you want, Thomas?
Thomas let the question hang. The grandfather clock told the half hour.
I don't want anything from you, Tyler. That was never the point.
Tyler stood frozen, hands shaking at his sides. The room felt smaller, the air harder to breathe.
There is more. The trust contains a lapse clause. If the co-signature is not renewed within any 90-day period, the entire principal diverts to a named secondary beneficiary.
What beneficiary? There was no one else.
Raymond slid a photograph across the desk, a cheerful children's hospital with a bright mural and a plaque bearing Linda's maiden name.
The Elmwood Children's Hospital. All $14 million would transfer there, irrevocably.
Tyler's face twisted. The inheritance he'd counted on was now tethered to a clock he couldn't see.
She gave it to a hospital over her own son.
Her hospital. She volunteered there for 20 years. Tyler, she believed in something bigger than inheritance.
The grandfather clock in the corner seemed to amplify, each tick a hammer blow to Tyler's chest. He leaned forward, both palms flat on the desk, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper.
How long before it lapses?
Mr. Ellison, the specific timeline is confidential unless the co-signatory chooses to disclose it.
Raymond, please read the trust's non-disclosure clause aloud. The part about premature revelation.
This is absurd. Just tell me how long I have.
Thomas raised one hand, palm out, a gesture that silenced Tyler like a slamming door.
Your mother watched you for years, Tyler. She knew what you would do the moment you thought you'd won.
The trust states, any attempt to coerce or pressure the co-signatory into acting against their own judgment constitutes a material breach, voiding the beneficiary's claim.
She set a trap, and I walked right into it.
You just laughed at the will, Tyler. You didn't even pause to remember her. That laugh was the last thing Linda ever wanted to hear from you.
The words landed and stuck. Tyler's hands fell limp at his sides, and in that heavy silence, the real will reading began. Not of assets, but of character. Tyler's composure finally splintered. He reached into his jacket, produced a leather checkbook, and dropped it onto the desk between them.
$2 million. Sign the co-signature, and the money is yours. No questions, no waiting. You walk away richer.
The checkbook sat there, a desperate rectangle of hope, glowing under the amber lamp.
You think this is about money, Tyler?
Everything's about money. This is business, a fair exchange. I am giving you a clean exit.
Thomas folded his hands. The gold band caught the light and held it. He said nothing.
He's not even tempted. I am going to lose everything. $2 million, Thomas. More than you'd ever earn. Don't be a fool. Sign and we both walk away happy.
Thomas smiled, not a smug smile, but something worse, a patient, knowing curve that said he had already decided. And still, he didn't answer. The pen remained untouched on the desk. A small, damning indictment.
I won't sign, Tyler. Not now. Not ever. Find another way if you can.
The words fell like a guillotine. Tyler's face drained of the last vestige of hope, and his jaw went slack. Thomas stood slowly. His chair scraped against the hardwood floor as he rose, then buttoned his suit jacket with quiet dignity.
You'll regret this, old man. I'll take it to court and bleed you dry.
You can try. But the trust is iron. Your mother made sure of that.
He didn't wait for a response. Turning, he walked toward the heavy oak door, his steps deliberate and slow. Raymond sat motionless, his wire-rim glasses now in his hand, a silent witness to the implosion of a family. Tyler's mind scrambled for a new angle, but no argument came. Only the cold certainty that the clock was still ticking. He slumped deeper into his chair, the leather checkbook sliding off the desk and slapping the parquet floor, utterly forgotten. Thomas reached the door, his hand pausing on the brass knob. He stared at the polished wood, but he did not turn around. The sound of the chair skidding back broke the silence. Tyler scrambled to his feet, eyes wild.
Wait, please. I'll do anything. Just sign. Name your price.
Thomas's hand tightened on the brass knob, but he didn't turn. His shoulders were set in stone.
He's not even listening to him. I am just the laughing stepson. Half. 5 million. Just sign and disappear.
Mr. Ellison, I advise you, any further threats will be documented and could void your claim entirely.
Tyler's face twisted, caught between rage and the cold reality that he'd already lost.
Your mother set this up because she knew the first thing you'd do is count the money.
Tyler's argument died in his throat. He saw it now. The whole design had been waiting for his reaction. Thomas's hand tightened on the brass, and the room held its breath, waiting for whatever came next. Thomas turned the knob, but before pulling the door open, he spoke without looking back.
Your mother knew exactly who you were. She just hoped she was wrong.
The words hung in the air, heavier than any legal clause Raymond could have read.
He knew. She told him everything.
Thomas turned the knob and pulled the door wide. Blinding hallway light sliced into the dim office. He paused in the doorway, his silhouette crisp and unbending against the bright corridor. Beyond,
You'll never see a cent of that money, old man. You hear me? Neither will that hospital.
Thomas's shoulders rose and fell with a single, slow breath. He never turned around.
The money was never meant for either of us, Tyler. It was always hers to give.
Then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him with a final soft thud. For a long moment, the only sound in the office was the grandfather clock ticking into the silence.
The trust is explicit. Without that signature, the bonds revert. There is no appeal.
This can't be it. There has to be a loophole.
I should advise you, Mr. Ellison. Any further attempt to pressure Mr. Ashford will be documented as a breach.
Tyler stared at Thomas's empty chair, its leather still holding the ghost of his shape. He thought of hiring lawyers, finding a loophole, but Linda's trust was Swiss steel.
So that's it. She left me 1 million and gave away 14. That's not justice.
It was her justice, and it is now final.
Tyler's shoulders dropped. He retreated into his chair like a man folding into a cave. The clock struck once, and the only thing moving was the slow sweep of the second hand. Tyler pushed himself upright. The leather checkbook remained on the floor like a discarded receipt.
The trust's terms are not subject to challenge in any jurisdiction you can afford, Mr. Ellison. I suggest you accept it.
This isn't over. I'll find a way.
He walked to the door with the heavy steps of a man carrying invisible chains. The corridor stretched long and empty. Sunlight from the end-of-hall window made his shadow thin. Outside, the city noise hit him, indifferent, moving on without him.
I'll call everyone. There's an angle somewhere. She can't have outplayed me.
But the numbers were already folding against him, and somewhere deep inside, he knew it. He hailed a cab and slid inside, the door slamming like a cell. The driver asked for an address. Tyler gave his mother's old house, still not ready to let go. Thomas Ashford walked the long corridor of Cross and Associates, his footsteps muffled by carpet and muted lamps. He pushed through the revolving door and into the late afternoon sun, squinting briefly at the sky. He walked home, his pace unhurried, the city noise fading into a quiet hum behind him. In his study, he unlocked the bottom drawer of his desk and removed a worn leather journal. It fell open to a page with a column of dates, each labeled with a numbered day of the count. Moving to the living room, he sat beneath the framed photograph of Linda on the mantel, her smile steady. He looked at the latest entry, day 61. Will reading. The numbers were beginning to blur.
29 days, and the money will go to the children who need it.
He closed the journal and returned it to the drawer beside a snapshot of Linda laughing in her garden. Then he sat back, and for the first time in weeks allowed himself a moment of true stillness. Thomas's mind drifted to the last time Linda had spoken of the trust, a week before the end.
If Tyler proves me wrong, you sign. He gets what he's entitled to. But if he laughs, if he tries to buy you off, you let the clock run out.
She had known him, loved him, but she was not blind to his hungers. The bonds came from her grandfather, old money built over generations. She refused to let it fuel Tyler's ambition. It would help children, or it would help children, or it would help no one.
You are the gatekeeper, Thomas. The only one I trust with my father's name.
So he kept that trust. He counted each of the 61 days in silence. 6 years she'd prepared him for that room, for that laugh. Every detail was her love letter, and now, with the fire crackling low, he allowed himself a quiet, steady peace. Days passed. The clock in his study ticked the same as the one in Raymond's office. He watched the leaves turn outside his window, each falling leaf a day closer to the 90. He didn't call Tyler. He didn't waver. Linda's instructions were clear.
She hoped you'd surprise her, Tyler. But she knew you better.
The hospital would receive $14 million. New wings, new equipment, new hope. Children who might never play again would paint and laugh and heal. Thomas imagined the boardroom where the donation would be announced, though he'd never see it. He tended his garden. The quiet rhythm of watering can and soil a small comfort. Linda's photo watched from the mantel. In his mind, she was smiling. He had kept his promise. And somewhere, he believed, she knew. In the days after, Tyler found himself replaying that moment in the doorway, frozen against the light. He saw Thomas's silhouette, hand on the brass knob, and heard the words that had cut deeper than a lawyer's clause.
Your mother knew exactly who you were. She just hoped she was wrong.
That line played on a loop. Not as sound, but as a weight in his chest he couldn't exhale. He had laughed. He had thrown a checkbook across the desk. Every move she had anticipated. The money he'd pursued was now a countdown, and he had no way to stop it.
She really did know me, and I proved her right.
Across town, Thomas Ashford closed his journal and placed it back in the drawer. Linda's photo stood on the mantel, her smile unchanged. He had fulfilled her last hope, and the echo of his words at the door became the final verdict. Not for a courtroom, but for a son. On the 91st day, a clock in Geneva struck 10, and a silent wire transfer executed across 3 continents. At Elmwood Children's Hospital, the director opened a certified envelope with trembling hands. Inside, a single-page letter confirmed an anonymous donation of $14 million. The director covered her mouth, tears spilling before she could speak. Within the hour, the hospital lobby buzzed with whispered disbelief and quiet, breathless laughter. A maintenance worker climbed a ladder to change the donor plaque. Linda's maiden name would finally appear. In the pediatric wing, a boy in a wheelchair laughed at a puppet show, unaware of the gift that would rebuild his future. Outside, the hospital glowed white and gold under a perfect autumn sun, as if the building itself understood. The next morning, the local newspaper ran a headline: Anonymous $14 million saves Children's Hospital. Linda Ashford's legacy had arrived, not in a courtroom, but in the quiet, sacred spaces where children healed. Tyler Ellison sat in his mother's kitchen, the morning paper spread before him, coffee gone cold. The headline stopped his breath. Anonymous $14 million saves Children's Hospital. He read the date on the paper twice, then again, because his mind refused the math.
This is 91 days after she died. The clock was already past the deadline at the reading.
He scrambled for his phone, thumb hovering over Raymond's number, but he didn't dial.
Thomas never had to refuse. He was just waiting for the clock to run out.
He hurled the paper across the kitchen, pages fluttering like wounded birds. Then he sat, the silence rushing back in, louder than any shout. Outside the window, the city moved on. Cars passed. Pedestrians laughed. A dog barked. He had the house, the cars, and $1 million. And it was all he would ever have. The autumn mornings found Thomas Ashford in his garden, tending the tomatoes with a quiet, practiced hand. He moved without hurry, the way a man does when the race is already won. Inside, Linda's photograph watched the room from its place on the mantel, unblinking and calm. He sat in his armchair, the old leather creaking as he leaned back and let the silence settle around him.
We kept our promise. The hospital will grow, and the children will have their chance.
One Sunday, he drove past the hospital. He didn't stop, but he saw the new wing, bright with murals, and heard the faint sound of children laughing. He drove to the park, found a bench, and watched the sky pale into evening, the city's noise distant. Somewhere across town, an old house held an empty kitchen and a son who was learning that grief and greed can share a room. Here, in the home Linda had made, there was only the soft crackle of the fire and the steady rhythm of a man at peace. He closed his eyes, one hand resting on the armrest where her hand used to lay, and the world outside grew still. Winter came softly. A thin blanket of snow covered the benches and gardens of Elmwood Children's Hospital. Inside, the new wing hummed with warmth. Every bed, every machine, every painted wall whispered of a gift given in secret. In the lobby, a bronze plaque caught the morning light. A single name, Linda Ashford. A little girl in a yellow gown walked past it, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She paused and traced the letters with her finger. She didn't know the name, but she smiled anyway, because the hospital no longer felt like a place where hope went to sleep. Outside, a fresh snowfall began, blanketing the old and making everything new. In a quiet house across town, an old man in a worn armchair opened his eyes. The fire had burned low.
She built something that will outlast all of us. That was always her gift.
The camera drifts through the hospital's sunlit halls, past the playrooms full of laughter, past the plaque that bears her name, and rests on a window where the snow falls without sound. Linda's love, it turned out, never stopped giving.